What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for the Cinco de Mayo edition of Friday Night SmackDown, May 5th, 2023. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great weekend so far. I actually did not catch this show live, and I was a bit disappointed in the moment just because, not that it was this overly great show, the crowd made this show. This emanated from San Juan, Puerto Rico, the site of Backlash tonight. They did it in the same building where Backlash is going to be tonight, and this crowd was fucking hot. If this crowd was any indication of the atmosphere that we're going to get tonight for this pay-per-view, I'm super pumped, and it's going to be a very fun night, regardless of how great or bad the matches might be, and I don't even think it's really going to be that bad of a show. I think on paper it has the potential to be a very fun show, and the crowd, as they did with SmackDown here with this show, will enhance my enjoyment of the event. The draft goes into effect for those curious on Monday, May 8th, so the new rosters did not go into effect on the show. We had Raw Superstars on the show. They were hyping up Backlash, finishing off feuds and stories and stuff like that. So, despite that, though, I should mention this right off the bat. The World Heavyweight Championship Tournament, I did not watch the press conference that happened yesterday. I was actually out all day in Mass to go see Guardians with the friends and stuff like that. So, the movie was great, by the way. No spoilers, but Guardians 3 was tremendous. A beautiful way to cap off the trilogy, I thought. And did not get. That's obviously why I caught up on SmackDown this morning. Didn't get a chance to watch it last night or the press conference. But they mentioned during the press conference, Triple H did, and I think they alluded to this last week. I didn't see anyone really talking about it, so I wasn't sure how true this was. I must have missed it when they mentioned it last week on commentary. That this World Heavyweight Championship tournament is going to feature talent from Raw and SmackDown. So I guess the way this is going down, and I'm not a fan of that at all, by the way, but real quickly, on Raw this coming Monday, we're getting 2 triple threat matches, and the winners of those matches will meet in the main event later that show to determine who will fight for the World Heavyweight Championship at Night of Champions later this month in Saudi Arabia on May 27th. On the SmackDown side, same thing, 2 triple threat matches, and also, by the way, seeing Guardians yesterday and just doing a lot of talking and stuff is why my voice is kind of shot, so just a forewarning there, and I apologize in advance for the inconvenience that causes. But SmackDown, same thing for next week. 2 triple threat matches, winners of those matches meeting in the main event later that night to determine who fights for the World Heavyweight Championship at the Night of Champions pay-per-view. 1 Raw guy versus 1 SmackDown guy. I think that is beyond fucking dumb. I honestly could not believe it. I mean, I could believe it because it's WWE and they do a lot of things that lack logic. AEW does as well, don't get me wrong. WWE just has a track record of doing this sort of shit where they put in, I mean, it literally did not take a full week for them to completely ignore the idea of Raw and SmackDown people being exclusive to their own rosters. Now, you can probably argue, okay, if the SmackDown wrestler were to win the World Heavyweight Championship in Night of Champions, they would then report to Raw and become the champion for that show. They said multiple times in the last couple of weeks that the World Heavyweight Championship will be Raw's top prize, especially with Roman Reigns being drafted to SmackDown. That championship belongs to the Blue brand. The World Heavyweight Championship goes to Raw. Now, again, I don't know why SmackDown talent, from a storyline standpoint, Roman Reigns is back next week. It's not as if they don't have a championship to fight for. In a sense, they don't, because Roman Reigns isn't really around as often as the World Heavyweight Championship is bound to be. The World Heavyweight Champion is bound to be. But still, I mean, if it's a Raw title, why wouldn't Raw exclusive talent be fighting for it? That just doesn't make any sense. So that sounds like, to me, as other people have said, this is far from a bold prediction, that we're getting Solo Sikoa and Seth Rollins in the main event, in the finals of said tournament. It's not a traditional tournament, and honestly, I'm totally fine with that. Just because we've had so many fucking tournaments in the last couple of months, years in WWE. AEW does them all the fucking time. Other promotions do as well. I'm kind of tired of the tournaments. NXT as well. We're getting an NXT Women's Championship tournament, actually, heading into Battleground later this month. I'm fine with them not doing a tourney. This is a different way of crowning a new champion. I like that. I'm not really sure how they're going to build the match. We're going to find out by this time next week, and I'll talk about it here in my SmackDown audio review coming up next Saturday. I don't know how you can really build the match if you have a Raw wrestler and the SmackDown wrestler, and per the rules of the brand split, they should not be appearing on each other's shows. That completely defeats the purpose of the fucking brand split, brand extension. I'm sure they'll try to make an exception to have the two people interact. I think that is very dumb. They're not going to be able to do a very good job of building the finals. This is why it should have been a Raw exclusive tournament. And if their idea was, Drew McIntyre's not back yet, the Raw roster might be light on people we could put in it, I think that's complete bullshit. Now, if you were to put Ricochet in said tournament, would he win? No. But I would rather see Raw talent, and Raw is a 3-hour show, so they certainly have enough people to fill out the roster for that tournament. Would Owens and Zayn be in it? Probably not. You could put them in, even though they're the current SmackDown Tag Team Champions. You have them, Riddle, Bronson Reed, you have the I don't know if they would put Gunther in it necessarily, but I think that would make sense. Rollins is one. I mentioned Riddle, Braun, Ricochet. There is more than enough people you could put in that tournament on that show. Finn Balor. You really don't need the SmackDown involvement, in my opinion, if the SmackDown people are going to lose anyway. So if you're going to argue, well, obviously it doesn't really matter if Ricochet's in it, then as opposed to Bobby Lashley or AJ Styles, they're going to lose too. At least the Raw stuff makes more sense. If it doesn't matter either way and it's predictable that they're going to lose, Solo, I still think, is obviously losing as well, as he should. There's a bit more drama there, I suppose, but still, Cody should not be in it if he's busy with Brock and he has his sights set in the World Heavyweight, or rather the undisputed WWE Universal Championship that is yet to be renamed. They have yet to address that, by the way. Not exactly undisputed if we have another World Championship coming, but whatever. That is Night of Champions. That's coming up in a couple of weeks. I typically don't do audio reviews the weekends of pay-per-views, but this is the first one in a long time just because I am not going to the show tonight. I am not in Puerto Rico for the show, and it's at a reasonable time. It's at a usual time. Mania, I was there for. Couldn't do the SmackDown audio review that weekend. Chamber, I was there for. Rumble, I was there for. Survivor Series, I was there for. The Crown Jewel show in November was the first pay-per-view that was the last pay-per-view I was not in attendance for and covering in person. But that show aired at like fucking noon. I didn't even watch that show live. But the noon pay-per-views, I can't really do an audio review of because I typically do these reviews on Saturday morning. So couldn't do one for that one. Before that, Extreme Rules. I was at that show. Before that, Clash of the Castle, noon pay-per-view. Couldn't do it that weekend. You had SummerSlam before that. I was there that weekend. And I think the last one, I think I did a SmackDown audio review for Money in the Bank. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and check. Even if I did or didn't, that would have been the last time I did an audio review of SmackDown the weekend of a pay-per-view. And I'm putting this up mere hours before the show, so kind of last minute, but better late than never, because I thought this was a decent show. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. The opening of the show, as we finally get into SmackDown from last night, was the LWO coming out to a thunderous ovation. Rey Mysterio, Santos Escobar, Zelina Vega, Cruz del Toro, Joaquin Wilde, all coming out at the same time. Only to be interrupted by the Judgment Day's Finn Balor, Rhea Ripley, and Dominic Mysterio, who got tremendous heat, specifically Dominic over Finn and Rhea. Dominic was a fucking heat magnet, as he has been for weeks and months now, but specifically on this show in front of this electric crowd, it was awesome. Quite the sight to see. This kind of feels like the finishing of the feud between the two stables, because they did end up on opposite brands coming out of the draft. We're getting Rhea and Zelina tomorrow. That's kind of the culmination of the rivalry. But this set up the night's main event. I thought we were getting Rhea and Rey in the main event, honestly, at one point. It ended up becoming Rhea and Dominic versus Rey and Zelina, which made more sense. Rhea and Rey would have been awesome, but we had Rey and Dominic in there one more time. I thought we would get them in the ring one more time at Backlash. That was the report at one point. But Bad Bunny and Damian Priest, to them, made more sense. Bad Bunny, they have enough faith, can go in there and have a competent singles match. So that's totally fine with me. So I like the setup for the main event in this segment here. Really good stuff. The first match on the show, the OC taking on the Viking Raiders. This was as a result of the OC getting the better of the Viking Raiders last week on the show. Neither team has a whole lot of heat right now. The OC are baby faces. The Viking Raiders are heels. I don't really give a shit about the Raiders. I don't really give a shit about the OC team, at least. I love AJ Styles, but Anderson Gallows, can't really bring myself to care. It is worth noting, as I mentioned before, as other people are well aware, Anderson Gallows were not hurt with AJ Styles. Michin is still a part of OC, which I like. She was at least on TV fairly regularly, not every single week. But they were on the show, or rather she was on the show, fairly decently in the absence of AJ Styles. Anderson Gallows were not. They promoted the match multiple times between Maximum Male Models or like Alpha Academy against Anderson and Gallows, and it never actually happened. And they never addressed why, or they said it was postponed. We never ended up getting it, and we won't end up getting it because both of those teams are on Raw still, and Anderson and Gallows are on SmackDown. I'll try not to cry myself to sleep tonight, but the match here was fine. I don't really give a shit about Anderson and Gallows. I am all for a more meaningful push for AJ Styles, though, so I'm hoping that's what this leads to. The match itself was decent. Both teams kind of peaked in WWE years ago. It is kind of crazy to think both of these teams are former IWGP Tag Team Champions, and they were at the peak of their popularity in Japan almost 10 years ago, but they're not terrible at this point. I actually really like the Raiders. It's just that the booking has done these teams no favors, and Gallows and Anderson in particular are just abysmal at this point, but it is what it is. We had Bianca Belair out next. Now, they promoted her for the show on social media ahead of time, and I got worried because I saw the Raw Women's Championship graphic, and I'm thinking, oh, fuck. She's going to be out on the show to announce a title swap. And then I realized, oh, wait, she's on SmackDown, so it makes sense why she would be on that show. Not that Raw wrestlers weren't on the show anyway, but I thought it was weird that they would have her on the show if she wasn't on SmackDown. She is on SmackDown, but they haven't done the belt swap yet. I don't want the belt swap. Now, what I think they're doing here, I still think we're getting it. I think the only reason why they're waiting on it is because, as they emphasized multiple times here, is that Bianca is days away from breaking Becky Lynch's record as the longest reigning Raw Women's Champion of all time. It would have been very, very, it's still dumb to do a belt swap. It would have been even worse, as I've emphasized elsewhere, that they would do a belt swap before Bianca breaks this record. Because if you do a belt swap, that ends the reign. It's a new reign for her as champion, as it would be for Rhea, and that is very stupid. They're probably still going to do it. The reign will end with a belt swap, I would assume, on Monday's Raw. I really hope we get redesigned championships or renamed titles. I doubt that's the case, so they don't have to end the reigns for both women. Whatever. But I do think she ties Becky's record tonight and she breaks the record tomorrow. I'm pretty positive that is how this is going to go down. But she was out here talking about the record and breaking it and whatnot. Damage Control interrupted. They beat up Bianca. Io Sky front and center as she should have been because she's the one getting the shot against Bianca at Backlash. So that was really the focal point of the segment. They did a good job of hyping that up. Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan made the save for Bianca, fending off Damage Control. So we found out 3 things for next week, actually. 2 matches in 1 segment. I mentioned previously the return of Roman Reigns to SmackDown for the first time since before WrestleMania. He was on the Raw after Mania, obviously not really doing anything or indicating what was next for him. We haven't seen him since in over a month. He'll be back on SmackDown next week. I think the last SmackDown that he would have been on would have been the SmackDown right before Mania, about 6 weeks ago. So he'll be back next week. Also next week, WWE Women's Tag Team titles on the line. Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez against Damage Control. That doesn't bother me as far as they're on Raw now. Why would they go to SmackDown? The Women's Tag Team Champions traditionally have floated between the brands, as the Men's Tag Team Champions probably will continue to do so, which makes the most sense to me. So having that match on SmackDown next week makes sense, following the win of Damage Control over Liv and Raquel this past week on Raw. And then also announced for next week, set up backstage in a segment on the show, Baron Corbin, who was announced as a free agent in the 2023 WWE Draft as of Monday, I believe, taking on SmackDown newcomer Cameron Grimes, which I like a lot. They're not wasting any time with Cameron Grimes. And it's funny they're doing that match because I forgot who initially came up with it. Maybe it was someone on Twitter that I had seen, I forget. But they had brought up the idea of doing Cameron and Baron because Baron, this was back when he was on the Raw roster months ago, and he was doing the money gimmick. It kind of made sense for Baron to be Cameron's first rival, and then maybe for JBL to switch sides and start managing him. JBL's gone. He's not coming back, and I don't really care. But it would have made more sense a couple of months ago. Better late than never. And I like that Cameron will be on the first SmackDown post-draft. Obviously not in this tournament that they're doing for the world title, nor should he be. But I like that they're going to get going with him right off the bat. I think that's great. So after that, we had the Street Profits versus Imperium's Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci. Another match pitting a now Raw team versus a now SmackDown team. They swapped brands in the draft because Profits were previously on Raw, Imperium was on SmackDown. A match we haven't seen before, I don't believe. A quality match here. Well worked. It was only a couple minutes long. Didn't really serve much of a purpose other than just to continue Profits winning ways and to kind of serve as a SmackDown send-off for Imperium. Gunther was not here. It was just those two. And that was really, really about it. It kind of felt like filler more than anything. The commentators did bring up, at least once or twice during this match, I thought at one point it was a number one contenders match based on how they were talking about it. Officially, it was not, I don't believe. But that the Profits could be in line for a future opportunity at the tag team titles. Now, I would like to see that because they've been winning a bit more lately. The only issue with that is that they already faced Owens and Zayn on the Raw after WrestleMania, that fucking abysmal post-WrestleMania Raw, and the championships were not on the line. I guess they can build up for an opportunity where the championships would be on the line, and it was a good match that they had on that post-WrestleMania Raw. I'm just not really sure why they would do that match and then go back to it with the championships on the line that the Profits already lost. I think that's weird, but it gives the Profits something to do. I mean, I would prefer to see Montez specifically kind of break off on his own and start doing single stuff without breaking up the Profits formally. That's just me. Cody Rhodes was on the show. Again, a Raw wrestler on SmackDown, but the last appearance of Cody on SmackDown for the foreseeable future, I would imagine. Hopefully until he wins Money in the Bank and then goes after Roman, but that's fantasy booking. It's pie in the sky at this point. Again, it was the final SmackDown before Backlash. Draft rosters not into effect yet. It made sense for him to be on the show. Hyping up his match with Brock coming up tonight at Backlash. He did a great job of recapping the rivalry, emphasizing why it's a must-win situation for him on Saturday night and why he has to win this match, how Brock is a gatekeeper and stuff like that. Great promo. I don't want to say more of the same from Cody. I think he does a really good job of not repeating himself in these promos, which is kind of remarkable considering he's done all the talking heading into Backlash, and we've seen him talk. We've heard from Cody quite a bit in the last month or so. We haven't really heard from him at all, and we haven't heard from Brock nearly enough, specifically because not that Brock's this amazing talker. I would have liked to have seen more of a back and forth between the two, specifically with Brock, for the sole reason that Brock should have explained his actions as to why he attacked Cody. So far, we still have no idea, and I don't think that's coming. At this point, I feel like they would have told us to give us more of a reason to care about why Brock should beat Cody. Cody saying, I need to win, and then him losing again doesn't exactly paint him like a winner, which is why I'm hoping if Brock wins, which I wouldn't have Cody decisively defeat Brock if they're extending the feud. If this is it, then he should win. The end game of the feud should be Cody winning, to me, clean. If this is not the end game, and I don't get the sense that it is, and I don't think it should be anyway, because they can do a rematch in Saudi. That would explain why Cody isn't in the World Championship tournament on Raw. I mean, he shouldn't be in it anyway, but that would make sense. They need to do some sort of a non-finish, or Brock winning by DQ, or Cody winning by DQ, or something. Cody just winning, or losing rather, clean in like 5 minutes to Brock, with Brock just beating the shit out of him, again, makes Cody look like a loser. You already did that at WrestleMania. Hasn't hindered Cody, which is good. He got a tremendous ovation on the show, but having him continue to lose high-profile matches might be part of the story, but it doesn't exactly make him look like this. I mean, it's hard to take the guy seriously. I need to win the championship, and then he doesn't. I need to beat Brock Lesnar, and then he doesn't. I'm not saying that Brock will lose tonight. I mean, it's guaranteed. I think there's a pretty good chance that he wins. I would just personally do a non-finish, especially if that match is not going on last. Shinsuke Nakamura, Karrion Kross have had a mini feud on SmackDown in the last couple of weeks. They had their first and only match here. I thought they would both go to Raw in the draft, or at least stay on the same show. That was not the case. Nakamura stayed put on SmackDown, Karrion Kross going to Raw. Actually, other way around. Nakamura going to Raw, Karrion Kross staying put on SmackDown. Which made me think, okay, the theme of the show has been the new SmackDown Superstars beating the now Raw Superstars. That was not the case here. Karrion Kross lost. He will be on SmackDown. He might honestly be in this tournament. He probably will be, to crown a new World Heavyweight Champion. He's not fucking winning, obviously, but he's probably in the tournament. I'm not really sure why you would have him lose here. I know there's this renewed push for Nakamura, and I think that's great. I don't think Nakamura is winning the World Heavyweight Championship. He'll probably be in the tournament on the Raw side of things next week, but so will Karrion. I don't know. Nakamura's not winning the Intercontinental title. I don't really want to see him face Gunther again. We've already seen that, and he lost. And I think the new World Heavyweight Champion is going to be Solo Sikoa. You can also argue, why would you build up Karrion if there's really nothing for him to go for right now? He's not going for the world title. He's not going for the United States Championship. But Nakamura's already over. Karrion is not. He needs more credibility boosting wins, and this could have been it. And he lost again. Now, the match was well worked. It wasn't exactly an exciting affair. I thought it was a solid match, but the outcome was questionable. And I like Nakamura. I'm not saying it's the worst thing that he won here. I'm just thinking, man, they just will not give Karrion Kross fucking anything. Yeah, he beat Drew McIntyre. He's beaten Rey Mysterio, but he beat Drew in a strap match that no one really remembers at Extreme Rules. He beat Ray on SmackDown with help of Dominic, and no one was really talking about Karrion. He beat Madcap Moss a couple times. Who gives a shit? He really hasn't had a lot to go off of so far. He just continues to lose whenever it matters most, including here, including the one and done match. The feud is as over quickly as it did begin, or whatever the wording would be. I just thought that was odd. The main event of the show, the LWO, Rey Mysterio and Zelina Vega taking on the Judgment Day's Dominic Mysterio and I wrote Rey Mysterio in my fucking notes here. I don't know why. Rey is the SmackDown Women's Champion, and he fought himself, I guess. No, that would be Rhea Ripley. Very good match here. Very entertaining. Crowd was into it as you would expect them to be. A great preview of Rhea and Zelina. I said tomorrow night. I meant tonight at Backlash. That should be a fun match. I don't think Zelina's winning, nor should she, but that should be a good match. And we kind of got the blow-off between Rey and Dominic, at least for now, with Rey getting the final pinfall over Rey Mysterio. Now, LWO has barely fucking won. I feel like whenever LWO wins, Santos Escobar and Del Toro and Wilde are never involved. And that was another case of that here. They never fucking win. They lost again on Monday's Raw. They lose every week. But they won here, as they should have. That kind of gives Zelina a momentum boost. Damian Priest was not involved. Damian has been winning a lot lately, but he didn't take a loss here because he wasn't involved in the match. Now, he came out to attack Rey and Zelina afterward, or not him specifically, but Judgment Day to kind of outnumber them. And then out came Bad Bunny with the rest of Legado to get the better of Judgment Day, with Bad Bunny and Damian facing off. The crowd went fucking nuts for this. Bad Bunny taking a kendo stick to Damian. Crowd went nuts, fended him off. And then he posed with the LWO wearing their shirt to close out the show. Little note here, you could see Bad Bunny wearing a jacket when he came out. It was a WWF jacket with the old WWF logo, like the scratch logo too, not the old, 80s logo, which I believe has since been blurred from their YouTube channel or whatever because they can't show the logo for legal reasons, which is funny. I just thought that was a cool note. And the jacket looked cool too. But him posing with the LWO shirt, crowd went nuts in Puerto Rico. Just a really cool fucking moment. A great way to close off the show, and this kind of solidified in my mind that Priest and Bad Bunny should be the main event tonight. I'm looking forward to the rest of the card. The six-man should be nice. They main evented a lot lately. Cody and Brock is obviously a very big match. This feels like the focal point and the real attraction of the event. Unless they have something massive to go off the show with, otherwise, I think it should be Bad Bunny facing Damian Priest and winning. And that should be a fun match as well. That San Juan street fight between the two in this exact building coming up tonight on pay-per-view. So I would give this a thumbs-up show. Not exactly an overly eventful show, a go-home show, but it got me more excited for Backlash than I was previously, which Raw did not. Raw was fucking terrible on Monday, aside from the draft stuff, and even that was, people don't love that sort of stuff, which I get. With this show, there wasn't like a match that really sold me on Backlash. I thought the main event, the opening and the closing segments on the show were the best part about this episode. What really sold me about Backlash was nothing that they really did to build up the matches. The Cody promo was great too. It was the crowd, actually. This was a taste of... I think that when they do this sort of stuff, when they put SmackDown in the same building on Friday that they're going to be in on Saturday, it's such a great fucking idea. They did it for SmackDown in Montreal a couple of months ago, and it worked. That Sami Zayn segment, again, was amazing. I was in the building for that, and it got people super hyped for the show. We had that here again in Puerto Rico, and we're going to be getting it again in Money in the Bank in London. They're doing SmackDown in London. Raw's getting fucked here. It's not like they're going to these cities for Raw the following Monday or the Monday before. They're going to be doing the same thing for Money in the Bank in London in a couple months, where they're in London for SmackDown on Friday, and then they do the show. I think it's in the O2 Arena. Maybe it's in a different arena. I don't think it would be in a different arena for SmackDown than the pay-per-view, because it's not like they're running Wembley Stadium like AEW is it, which, by the way, massive news, apparently getting 60 to 65,000 tickets for that show. That's incredible, an amazing accomplishment. But the crowd really sold me on this show. That really enhanced my enjoyment of this episode and got me pumped for tonight, thinking, wow, this should be a really strong pay-per-view, so I'm looking forward to it. And those are my thoughts on the Cinco de Mayo edition of SmackDown for May 5th, 2023. The Backlash predictions for the pay-per-view are already up here on the channel from Wrestle Rant Radio on late Thursday night, so check that out when you get a chance. Should be posting more content here on the channel coming soon, including more hashtag GSM for GM, interviews, SmackDown Lowdown review from today, coming up shortly here on the channel, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, it kind of feels nice to do a pay-per-view weekend SmackDown audio review for a change for the first time in a long time. So I appreciate you guys tuning in before Backlash tonight. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Have an awesome one. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.